Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Talks with Tiffany, the podcast. I'm so glad that you could be here with me today. Guess what? Guess who I have today? Today, I have Judh Grandchamps as our guest. Judh is amazing for many reasons. His bio's attached, so you can look that up. But he's amazing for a particular reason to me because Judh and I have been in a mastermind for how many years? Maybe about 3 years now?
3 years. Yeah. We've been
It
doing the mastermind for about 3 years.
started with the 5 a.m. This is the stuff that you need your serious friends to commit to. This is not for the faint of heart. So I love that we've been able to have this great relationship, starting with 5 a.m. clubs, wake ups at 5 a.m. on the phone, strategizing, planning. We have a weekly mastermind meeting, and we've just been kicking butt. We have a yearly rising retreat session. We have one coming up. I'm super excited about that one. We're already planning for 2026. And it's just a great way to hold each other accountable. It's a great way to get productivity done. It's been fun. So that's one of the many reasons that I love Judh. Judh, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's a fun time. I've been looking forward to this all week.
That's good. I'm glad that you say that. So today's theme is from restaurant manager to house spouse.
The happy house spouse. Okay. The happy house spouse.
Right. So
yeah.
This podcast is all about how you have redefined success and ultimately how you've redefined your identity. And we've had lots of conversations about this. So I'm really, really excited to get into it. But before we get into that, take us back, Judh. Take us back. What drew you into the restaurant industry in the first place?
The restaurant industry was, we had a Grandchamps restaurant. My sister was expanding the Grandchamps restaurant. We had one in Bed-Stuy. I actually opened up a location in the Navy Yard. So it was like an extension of Grandchamps.
Brooklyn, New York, everybody. Brooklyn, New York.
Yeah. One of the things around that was, we grew up, eating Haitian food, and we wanted to share, our experience, our Haitian experience with everyone else. And so, my sister opened up the restaurant, and I was manager of the restaurant in the Navy Yard and whatnot. It was a really fun time.
That sounds really good. How long were you restaurant manager?
So Grandchamps opened up in like 2016, 2015. And then I did the Navy Yard around 2019. So I opened up the restaurant. I opened up the Navy Yard location. Yeah, 2019. Actually, you came up there one time.
I did.
You had a little grill sandwich action.
I came and ate at the Brooklyn Navy Yard.
Yeah.
Location, beautiful location, right on the water, close to Steiner Studios. Just a really, really beautiful location. A revitalized area, really, is what happened.
It was tight.
Yeah, really, really, really
tight.
Beautiful.
It was it was on the come up. They were starting to do a lot of things at the Navy Yard. They were bringing in a lot of new businesses, and we were fortunate enough to be one of those businesses that they brought in.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we were able to kind of share our culture with the community through that restaurant. So it was great.
I think that you all must have been so impactful because there were some other really iconic businesses there. So I remember the Food Sermon.
The Food Sermon was there.
What an incredible restaurant. What an incredible cuisine. I mean, wherever they are, please, Food Sermon. If you want to make a comeback, I'm here for it. I will gain the weight.
Food Sermon.
I will gain the pounds for the Food Sermon. It was also
Food Sermon, yeah.
Russ and Daughters.
Russ and Daughters was there. Rustic.
Other iconic restaurants that just classic New York fare, food fare. And so Grandchamps was a part of that. I remember what I loved about Grandchamps is that you all had traditional Haitian food, but you also had like really creative twists.
Yeah. We had the famous the GC, the grill sandwich. Our grill sandwich was like it was the signature sandwich. It was made with the grill, which is like a fried pork.
Mm-hmm.
It had we did it with sweet plantains and a marinade in like a brioche bun. It was fantastic.
I agree, it was fantastic. Let me just stop you though. So, because there is this conversation about, so Caribbean people say plantain
Plantains, yeah.
and other people say plantain.
Plantains,
And so
yeah,
that's
yeah,
very,
yeah.
very interesting that you,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. So I think that's so cool. But I love the way that it was a beautiful way to bring traditional Haitian culture to Brooklyn. And Brooklyn has a vibrant Caribbean culture
Absolutely.
in general, in general.
Absolutely.
So managing the restaurant. And so now managing the restaurant wasn't your main career or wasn't your first career. Why don't you take us back a little bit and tell us about really what was the bulk of your career?
I was in drug, so I worked in drug policy for about 11 years. Drug Policy Alliance was one of my, it had to be one of my favorite jobs on the planet. I really loved working at the Drug Policy Alliance. We worked on a lot of when I was working there, we were working on like decriminalizing marijuana. That that nonprofit really did a lot for like building equity around sentencing reform. It really highlighted the fact that like humanized people who use drugs as opposed to like criminalizing folks. So drug policy, I met a lot of great people there. No, we like every year they have like a reform conference where, people from all over the nation and sometimes even all over the world come together to talk about different drug policies and how they can be better at helping folks out. It was while I was working at Drug Policy Alliance that I really started understanding around harm reduction as a key for helping people either battle addiction or just be comfortable with their relationship with drugs.
Right.
And so, it was like a big education campaign, even for me. Like when I started working there, my mom was like, "You're working for a place that does what?" And I was like, "Yeah, mom, we were working for a place to decriminalize drugs and whatnot." And she thought I was crazy. But I learned a lot about the justice system. When I worked at Drug Policy, I learned a lot about, discrimination, just a lot about compassion. That's where working at DPA was where the first I've heard about equity and inclusion.
Wow.
So I learned a lot of stuff. I would almost say that DPA really helped me build like how compassionate I am today. I really got that from working at the Drug Policy Alliance for sure. I loved that job. It was really hard for me to leave that job. The only reason I left that job was to open the restaurant. That was the only reason.
Clearly, we know that your work wasn't for naught, right? Like, I think there was a lot of decriminalization that has occurred in the last,
Yeah.
what, 5, 6 years. So that's amazing to see. It's one thing if you're doing this work and you see no results, but we're definitely seeing and smelling the results of all of your hard work.
Now, remember,
That,
I was there for 11 years. I mean, DPA has been doing it for about 25 years.
wow,
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah. I
amazing.
mean, they were in the thick of it,
Hmm.
really like changing the language around, people who use drugs, to make sure that it's a human deal and that, people were treated fairly and compassionately. So DPA was fantastic.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So between after DPA and then Grand Champs Restaurant, tell me like, if we're thinking about the two of those things, what are some of the biggest lessons that you learned from both of those parts of your career?
DPA, like I said, I was telling you before, DPA really taught me to really look at people as people, regardless of, what they do or what their beliefs are or what their habits are. People at the end of the day are people. And I had loved that about DPA. When it came to the restaurant taught me how to be a people person, like how to be there for people, how to serve people, how to share love, community, and commitment through food. That was like those two things were like I feel like helped me with who my character is today.
That's interesting. That is so interesting. So tell me, I'd love to know, we'd all love to know, what was the moment that made you say, I have to step away from the restaurant. I can't do this anymore, or this isn't working
We
for
had
me.
the It was tough closing. We had to close the restaurant after COVID. The Navy Yard wasn't growing as they thought it was going to grow. You know, it was the restaurant business is a people business, and we just didn't have the foot traffic to keep the Brooklyn Navy Yard location open. It just wasn't going to be profitable leaving it open, and so we ended up having to shut it down. And that was hard. That was hard because uh you know you I left my job so that, to open a business. You follow what I'm saying? Because that was the thing, to build a legacy. And then to have COVID happen, and then to have to like make the decision to like uh shut it down was really difficult.
I can't even imagine what that must be like.
Was the one of the I gotta tell you, the hardest part about oof, the hardest part when we had to shut the restaurant down, I had to go and take the sign down.
I
We had to,
remember.
oh my
I
gosh.
remember.
It was just we just didn't have the traffic to keep it open, and so we ended up, financially just having to just shut the Navy Yard down. And so, we shut down the Navy Yard, and then I went and I helped out at the Bed-Stuy location. And
Nice.
so I worked and so I was over there working there for a while.
And then ultimately, you decided to leave the restaurant industry altogether. And so, what helped to facilitate that change?
Eventually we had to we was it was a struggle. It was a struggle at at Bed-Stuy as well. The location there, a lot of foot traffic had been reduced and stuff. It just wasn't a fit anymore. I Between that and then having to take care of like my family and stuff like that, was some tough decisions that had to be made at that point. So I ended up like having to quit the restaurant business, and then I went to being a full-time house spouse.
Love
I
it.
sat down I sat down with my wife one day, and we were just talking, and it was just like, look, at this point, we're gonna have to transition, out of. It was just costing us more as a household for me to work at the restaurant than for me to not work at the restaurant. At that time, we were taking care of my niece. We had, and it was getting a lot trickier trying to like run the restaurant, being there for the restaurant, and then being there for my niece. And so something had to give, and I had ended up having to just get out the restaurant business and then just kind of being a full-time house spouse.
So, when you did transition, was being a house spouse been what you've expected it to be?
Let me tell you, I when I left the restaurant, I had to figure out what it looked like to be a provider. Normally, when you're in a marriage, you like it's like the men provide, you provide for the household and stuff like that. And when Chantel and I, when we talked about it, it was just like, look, it just makes sense. If you just like take care of stuff at home, while she works. And I struggled with that for like a year. I mean, me and you, we talked a lot about some of my struggles in transitioning out
Absolutely.
of like, working in the like actually getting out and working to like being like full-time, house spouse, making sure that everybody has breakfast, making sure everybody's lunch is prepared and stuff like that. I mean, I was doing that while I was working at the restaurant, but it's a different level now because we had to, then I started doing things for my niece's school, s- we had other family members' health deteriorate a little bit more a little faster than we thought would happen. And so they started needing some more care and stuff. And so like that's when I transitioned from like from being like a restaurant manager to like a house spouse.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, being a house spouse is definitely something that you have taken and really made your own.
It took a while to embrace it. I wish it was like a switch that I just flipped. Look, we were on a lot of 5 a.m. calls. You guys remember? I like it was really affecting my ego. So it was like an easy transition.
Mhm.
There was a lot of friction, not a lot of friction, but there was for me the idea that I wasn't really contributing as much as I could have because I was full time at home,
Yeah.
right? And so,
I think a
that looked
lot of
different.
the times what happens is that people are so tied to their career, their identity is so closely tied to their career that it's really challenging when they have to redefine that. Like we get our careers and that is it. We rock with that and we love that. And it becomes such a part of our personality. And sometimes redefining it is challenging. And the worst part is often when it's time to redefine a career or to redefine your identity, it's because of the results of something that's already challenging. So you're already challenged because you have to close down the restaurant. And
Hmm.
in addition to closing down the restaurant, which I remember when you went to get the sign, I remember all of that. So in addition to that challenge, you also now have the challenge of who am I? What do I know? How do I serve? What will people think of me? Uh,
Exactly. We had a lot of conversations around that. It was really it was really a trying time
mhm.
on that one.
Yeah.
I really had to, when I went through that transition, to your point, I had to let go of the business, being part of a business that's growing, identity, the whole, that whole serving the community in that fashion, to really coming down to being focused to just my immediate family and what the immediate family needs were at that time, and like how could we best function as a household. And so, I didn't like the decision when I made it, but I made the decision. You
Yeah.
follow what I'm saying? So it's like one of the biggest lessons in becoming a house spouse was like making the decision, like understanding that I didn't like it. Like it wasn't like a thing that I liked 100% on it, but I rocked with it because I knew it was best I knew it was best for me and Chantel. I knew it was best for our household at that
And that's
point.
the part of being, like a well-adjusted, responsible, healthy adult. Sometimes we make decisions that we don't necessarily love, but we know that they're in alignment with our integrity and our character and who we are at the core of ourselves. And yeah, sometimes we got to make the hard decision and not like it and figure it out.
It was tricky. There was a point where I had to I was fighting who I was, right, as a house spouse, and then just as a man in the relationship, having to redefine what that looked like within our relationship, and having these conversations, and finally getting to a place where it was just like we had to understand, well, I had to understand that regardless of how other people seen it, what really mattered was how me and my wife seen it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
You know what
think
I'm
so
saying?
that brings up another point, another interesting point to me. So I think so often men's manhood and their ego is tied to them being a provider, right? Like that's a big part of their identity, a big part of their manhood. I think for a lot of women, provider from a man doesn't necessarily mean financial providing.
And that's what I learned.
Often for women, we want a man to provide consistency and stability and love because that's where we thrive. So then what often happens is we hear a lot of women say, well, I can do this by myself and I can have this, and I can make my own money because it's true. It's true. I mean, like that, this is just statistical data that shows women are able to make a great deal of money. Right. So we're not always looking for a partner to bring that. We're looking for a partner to provide a sense of stability and a feeling of home and a sense of consistency. And that's where women thrive. That's where you'll get us to bloom and just be free. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about you discovering that with your wife.
No, I mean you hit it right on. You hit it right on the money. It was a deal where in all our conversations and stuff, I figured out that I can provider doesn't necessarily mean financial. Like we've had that conversation, and that actually clicked for me. Like that one was one of those deals where we had a session and I walked away thinking that's the key. The key is to redefine what these norms are to make it work. And so like when I took on that definition of provider, which is like providing stability, providing a space, right? Providing like even freedom in a sense, because there were certain things that like I was able to take on that Chantel was able to like kind of put off her plate so that she could focus on her work, which made it a lot easier to handle all the chaos that was happening at work because she didn't have to deal with all the chaos at home. I was dealing with all the chaos at the house. You follow what I'm saying? And so once I was able to kind of like redefine that as far as like what a provider was, that to me was the mindset change that I needed for me to become like the happy house spouse, right? As opposed to like this miserable house spouse, which is why I ended up taking on that on. Like it was one of those deals when once I decided that I was gonna be the house spouse, I was like, I might as well have fun with it.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I'm gonna
Like
I'm
I
gonna
might as
come
well have fun with it.
I'm gonna come back to that. I'm gonna come back to that. I do want to touch on, like one point that you said. I think that there is a lot of, I think people don't understand how important it is for not just women, particularly women, but for people at all. If we have a sense of safety, we're able to do everything better. Our work is easier. We're able to be more creative. And I think that a lot of people don't realize that, and so they're sometimes looking for a partner or a man to provide certain things when really what we want as individuals when we're in a relationship is to feel safe, safe to be ourselves, safe to make requests and ask for the things that we want, safe to freely and openly love the way that we'd like to, or love the way that we believe that our partner wants to be loved. And so I think it's really key and really so important that once you grasp that, like, things probably really shifted in a big way for you and your wife and your family.
No, absolutely. I think with Chantel, to your point, there was a hesitancy because there was some backlash in the beginning as far as like, it was like one of those things where I was like, I have to do this. And because I was looking at it as a have to, I made it I made it a little bit of a tough transition in the beginning as far as like, having to take on the household and stuff like that. When we sat down and she was basically like saying, you my guy, like you will always
Yeah.
be my guy. Yeah. And it was just like, how whatever works for us, it doesn't matter what other people think. What matters is if we're happy with what's going on and whatnot. And I think I needed that from her as well to hear her say that I'm still, the man in her eyes. You follow what I'm
Absolutely.
saying? Regardless of like what my title is or what my position is or
Mhm.
what I'm or how I'm or how I'm showing up and stuff. And so I
Absolutely.
think after we had that conversation, it really helped me kind of let some of the ego go and really go all in as far as like my responsibilities as a house spouse is concerned.
And I think that even ties back to business, and to leadership. I think that, when you have a leader in any capacity who's just like, hey, listen, I don't need to beat my chest and keep telling you I'm the boss. Like, I just need to be who I say that I am, um, instead of just saying what I say I am, which is very, very different. I think often
Hmm.
people think that they are who they say they are, and they're not. They're how they show up. You are essentially the behaviors, the actions that you take, how you show up in life. That is really the essence, the core of who you are. So I think that's
Hmm.
really interesting.
Hmm.
So tell me, what's a day in the life like for the happy house spouse?
I mean, a lot of stuff is like, stuff I used to do at work. Having to do like having to like balance a budget, having to make sure that, everything in the house is running. The one thing I will say is this though, like there's things that I was able to take care of at the house that I didn't have time to take care of because I was working at the restaurant and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And it turns out like right now, I mean, not right now I'm house spousing, but we're making more money right now house spousing than I did when I was at the restaurant
Wow.
because there were different expenses that were coming up. You
Right.
follow what I'm saying?
Right.
And sometimes we don't take those things into consideration. But like when we started treating it here like a business, it was wild. It was like there's certain things that we just like if we want to do some things, like I had because I was home, we didn't need two cars.
Hmm.
Right. So we we saved money on car insurance, right? We got down to like one car and stuff. You know, when I was working, remember in the daytime, one of the toughest things is in the evening, figuring out what's for dinner. Everybody's coming home and it's like, what's for dinner?
This was
And
great.
then
I
there's this,
remember when you did the analysis and figured out how much you were saving.
we were eating out 5 to 6 times a week, right? Only cooking maybe on Sundays. Now it's the reverse, right? I'm cooking like 5 to 6 times a week. We eating out once, just to give myself a break, right? And the difference is big because like I'm not buying out for breakfast. I'm not buying out for lunch. I'm prepping C's lunch. I'm prepping her breakfast and whatnot. So, when we get to every so often, if we want to go out with each other, we have our Saturdays that we go out.
Yeah,
We're able to
yeah,
like
yeah,
enjoy our little lunch. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
But it was a big game changer. We have, my niece, she usually gets out of school like around 3:30. She was getting home like 3, and there were many a days where like the bus had to wait for us to. I mean, they definitely complained about me not being there to pick up to pick get my child off the
Yes,
bus.
doing
Like
80 coming down the belt.
what 80? You doing? If I was getting to 5 miles per hour, remember at the Belt Parkway at that time was just always packed. You follow what I'm saying? So
Mm,
coming from Brooklyn to get back, it was just wild. And so like now, now it's a lot more. It's a lot calmer. And now I'm able to like participate in more of my niece's growth. So like now I'm PA president, right? Right at her
right.
at her school. Like the parent coordinator saw something, and she asked me to come to a meeting, right?
Mhm.
I go. My wife goes, the parent coordinator called you to come to a meeting. She was like, they're probably looking for you to be they probably want you to be president of PA. I was like, no way, there's no way in the world. I show up there, and lo and behold, they were like, oh, we're gonna do a vote today.
Absolutely.
Who in here could run? And then I'm sitting in there, I'm like, I don't believe this is happening. The parent coordinator is looking at me like,
Right, right. They're like, "This is
throw
you."
your hat in. Yeah, 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 yeah. Throw your hat in. And so like, yeah, so now I'm PA president. The other thing that how you want to get involved in your community, like your local community and stuff like that. But it's really tough. I gotta tell you, it's really tough to get involved in your community when you're working and having to like make sure you're bringing in your income so that you could live your lifestyle, or you could even just provide for your household and stuff. So like I was able to like now I'm able to like participate in like community board meetings and like find out like all the gist behind the stuff that's going on. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scene while people are working.
I think what's
I
so
gotta tell you,
interesting and beautiful about that was something that you made a declaration about
I was
years ago, that
working
this
on,
was something that you
yeah,
wanted to do,
I wanted to get on
and
the
so you
community board
manifested it.
eventually.
Yeah,
Yeah, eventually get like a council seat, which is still in the works.
and this is how you
We're
get
in
on
the
track. This is how you get on
on the
track for that.
progress of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing, I think that one of the biggest lessons since we've been working together on a lot of stuff, and since we've been masterminding, is how time like shows up different for each of us, as far as like when we wanted to do things and how these things are starting to pop up and whatnot. And it's been fascinating to watch how we've been manifesting these things as opposed to like wishing for things to happen. Just being in the process of the manifestation has been very, very interesting, and it's been very challenging,
Yes.
as you can see.
I'm so glad you said that, because I think sometimes people think that manifestation is you just think it and it appears, and it doesn't work quite like that at all.
Listen, I'm gonna be honest with you. I used to think that.
Mm,
You follow what I'm saying? To be quite frank, I used to think that. It wasn't until like I had to really, we did a workshop. This was the one that we did at Grandchamps, that first one.
mhm.
And there was a session that we did around, it was a meditation, and you walked us through what where we would be in like a year, and then talking from that it was like a year from now,
Yeah,
you wanted to be a councilman, like talk to us about what that's like. And that exercise right there taught me what it really takes to be in action around manifesting, like how you have to put yourself in, like you actually have to like put yourself in the state of where you want to be, so that way where you are gets you to the be. It's almost like a
absolutely.
GPS deal. It's wild.
Absolutely. That was a really powerful day. I think a lot of people, they don't have ideas about where they're going or what it looks like. And it's kind of hard to find the destination if you don't know what you're looking for. And the worst part is it'll be as obvious as the Grand Canyon. But if you don't know that you're looking for a Grand Canyon or a canyon at all, you'll drive right by it. And so I think a lot of times people just need to get a picture in their head and then start thinking about it, and that helps to really manifest. That was a powerful, powerful meditation. That was a powerful exercise
There
that
was
we
a
did.
there was a whole bunch of like I think about even with the restaurant. I remember I was working out, I was working at DPA, and I remember my sister was pitching, my sister was pitching the restaurant and whatnot. And I imagined our name in lights
Mm,
like Grand Champs. So I'll never forget when I put that sign up. And we had it said Grand Champs, and we had the big G. I was like, this is it.
right,
I was like, this is it.
right.
The other lesson, however, that I also learned around manifestation is it's all in the moment.
Tell me more.
So I'll never forget when we put the sign up, and I looked at the sign and I was like, damn, we did it. And once that happened, I had manifested the dream.
Realization occurs in a moment. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so at that point, it becomes what's next?
Right. Right.
Because we made it. You know what I'm saying? Now, the what's next ended up happening. The what's next ended up being me becoming a house spouse.
Right. Right.
Right, because remember, I had these other things that I wanted to do. I wanted to be I wanted to be a
Mhm.
council member, right? I wanted to be in more in public service and whatnot. And so, looking back at when we had to close the restaurant, it was like one of those things where I was sad about it, but then it was just like, oh wait, maybe that had to happen
Yeah.
so that I can be where I am right now.
And not just, I mean, I see, of course, like how deeply intimate and robust your relationship with your wife is.
But we're
Um,
having a blast right now.
so that's a big part of it, and just how your family is thriving in general. I know that the house spouse, the happy house spouse, was a bone of contention. I know that I do recall you kind of coming up with this idea, and it was kind of like in a flippant way, like I'll just do this. And I know that you were making fun of it and um not taking it seriously, and it makes me think about something. So I think that in the mastermind we were taking it very seriously and you were making a joke, because for you it was basically like a this kind of moment, because it wasn't what you wanted to do or what you saw yourself doing. And what I
It
always
was
thought about was that usually I say to people, I'm not going to take your dream more seriously than you take your dream. Right. That's typically what I say. That's what I say to my clients. I mean, you and I have done work around coaching and transformational coaching and creating massive results. So we understand this. And we've said to our clients, like, yeah, I'm not taking this any more serious than you. If you don't want to take this process serious, if you don't want to take your goals seriously, I'm not fighting with you to take it seriously. And so I wonder, when you were feeling this way about the happy house spouse and kind of playing around with it, and it was a real tongue-in-cheek kind of action, I wonder what growth occurred to help you make the shift, because there was a moment of shift. There was a moment where you said, all right, I'm going to stop joking around about this, and I'm going to take this seriously, more so around the happy house spouse brand.
I think what the shift was, I decided to choose joy. Like I've always been playful on a lot of things, and many a times, to your point, I will use humor to dismiss the seriousness of something, especially if it like if it makes me uncomfortable. I've learned to throughout all of those conversations, I've learned to sit with uncomfortable. Like I've learned to be able to be like, you know what, it's actually, yeah, maybe humor is a way to kind of lessen the blow, but it doesn't have to be the only way to lessen the
It's a
blow,
great,
right?
great idea. Yeah.
The other thing was, there was a tendency to always, sometimes you listen to married people, and there's especially like men in some kinds, it's always like it's the ball and chain, it's the once you get married, it goes downhill from there. And I was kind of buying into some of that. You follow what I'm saying? It caused, I like, look, our first 20 years of marriage, I mean, we had very good moments, but it was pretty rocky. When we got to our 19th year, we were really questioning whether we were gonna keep going on this. Chantel was like, let's just give this thing one last shot. are we doing, let's go to therapy.
Mhm.
And I actually wasn't gonna do it, but I couldn't sit there and be like, I did everything I could, in
Without
my
actually
marriage
doing.
and not actually and not actually do
Right,
it. Like,
right,
how can I
right.
stay in
Because we
integrity
are
with
who
that, right?
we say we are, or
Right.
are we what we do, our actions, our behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like, and when we went to therapy, that's when I really learned like how to, communicate with my partner. But then I started learning. It was through therapy that we learned to redefine what it is to be married to each other,
Mm,
and what it means to be like a partnership to each other, right? And to be in service, to each other and whatnot. And, was it something that we wanted for each other? And the answer turned out to be yes, we did want that for each other and whatnot. And that decision right there turned our marriage around as well. If we didn't do the therapy, I wouldn't have been able to work at the restaurant. Because you got to think what happened I was working at DPA. I was having a lot of fun, and when my sister was like, we opened it at the restaurant, it was like, this is an opportunity to get into business. And Chantel was like, so you're just gonna leave your job and just go into business? Like, you just like, can we do this? And she was like, look, if it's something that you feel is gonna be good for the family, you feel is going, I got your back on it. You know what I'm saying? And she like supported me to go and chase that dream. It was wild. But I don't know if I'd have been able to do that had we not done that work. And so, that was a big lesson for me as far as like starting to take things into consider, starting to take things. And then, when we were getting into it and I was getting flippant about it, you're right. That was my way of kind of like lessening the blow, one, but also like dealing with it in my ego. You follow? You remember, I was still like I didn't like we at first it felt like I failed at the business. You follow what I'm saying? Like I was a failure, and so it's just like I was a failure at that, and now I got to go back to this. I got to do I got to do this, right? But what, now that I look back at it, it really wasn't a failure. I mean, we did do the business. You follow what I'm saying?
absolutely.
It just it didn't work out. That wasn't in the cards for me. What's in the cards for me is where I'm at right now.
Right. And I think what's so interesting about that is because of the time that it happened, the world was really in a different place. I mean, it's not like the business just failed in, let's say, the late 2000 teens, like it failed
Right.
in 2018, let's say. It's not that. I mean, we did go through a worldwide
Yeah.
pandemic. And I mean, businesses all across New York City were impacted in a major way.
Yeah.
And your business was a big part of that impact. I mean, there's so
Hmm.
many restaurants that never came back. They
Yeah.
never came back after the
Yeah.
pandemic at all.
Yeah.
At all.
It
And I
was.
mean, we're New Yorkers, we live in New York. So we really see it. We really saw businesses just die, completely die. Yeah.
But like it was afterwards, like sitting down and being like, you know what? Let me rather than fighting where I was,
Mhm.
why not just roll with it?
That part. That
You
part.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And when I decided to roll with it was when I was able to start flowing and finding all the energy to do all the other things, and all the other creative stuff started coming out, right? And then I was actually able to experience joy
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
doing,
yeah. Because
right?
I mean, I think as being a part of your village, let's say, for us or for me, I'll speak for myself, like I realized that there was no other choice. Like you better get on board and embrace this choice whether you like it or not. This is what's happening. Like this is what's happening. And so it would affect us as a group, as a team. It would affect Ignite. Ignite is the name of our mastermind. It would affected Ignite if you didn't realize that, all right, this is now the dream and I need to make this happen. Yeah, yeah. So I think part of it was, yes, of course, we want to champion our friends' decisions, but it was realizing like you're such an integral part of the team that we can't have one wobbly leg. We can't have a wobbly leg. Like the table's not gonna stand if we have a wobbly leg. And so to us, to me, it was really important.
Think what the team did for me though was it also showed that even though the leg is wobbly, it can still stand. And and as long as you got time, we can always repair it so that the leg can stabilize it. And to me, I think that was the key, is being able to have the opportunity to be able to kind of like fumble through it and it not be perfect, but be able to come back and be like, okay, I figured it out now. I can come back and contribute in a way that's even better than before because now I've healed on some stuff. You follow what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's how, how it occurred for you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That was whew, that was the way that I mean, that's the way it happened for me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
I guess, and if we're talking about that, is there judgment or was there judgment that you felt like you had to deal with from others as a
Uh,
result of your decision?
Absolutely. There's always gonna be judgment. But you know what? I got to the point where it was just like, as long as me and Chantel are having fun, who cares?
So, okay, so let's drill down a little bit. Did someone say something to you? Because
I don't
yeah, did
I
someone,
I
let's start with that. Did someone say something to you?
I've had I won't say that someone said anything to
Good.
me like
But let me
directly.
stop you right here. So, what I think
Yeah.
is so key about that, which is why I asked that specific question, I think sometimes we make up the idea that there's judgment when there really isn't. Like,
Yeah.
we're anticipating judgment, but the judgment never shows up.
Yep.
However, what the judgment is actually is a reflection of the judgment that we have of ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So I mean, that's kind of good to know. That no one
No, that was
said
the
anything to you.
that was a well, that was a big I mean, out of some of our conversations, that was one of the things that came out of it. It was just like who are you worried about the judgment on? And it turned out to be myself.
Yeah, because we judge
It turned
ourselves
like
so harshly.
hard, not a little bit. We are like literally, when you hear like we're our own hardest enemy or we're our own hardest judge,
Yeah,
it's the
yeah, worst
truth.
critic, yeah.
You know, where I started changing my mindset is I started wanting to become my biggest advocate, right? And it's okay to be my own biggest advocate
Mhm.
because if I don't advocate for myself or if I don't like adjust my judgment, then who of myself, no one else will. And even if other people did work on that for me, it wouldn't matter because I'm still hard on myself on the judgment. So even when y'all were like, nah, it's all right, this is a thing, I was just like, nah,
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
not. Because I was judging where I was and where I thought I was supposed to be, as
Yeah.
opposed to just accepting, where I am
Mhm.
and what I was becoming.
Right, right. I think, that is a part of that's what stops people from doing things is that they have this idea that people are going to judge them. And so as a result, they don't do the things that they want to do. The really big, audacious,
Yeah.
bold goals. They don't go after them. They stop dreaming. They start they stop making goals and they just start making excuses. And I know people that have like a running litany of clapbacks for whoever's judging them, but nobody's judging them. And so it's like, you
Uh,
have this whole conversation happening and the conversation
well,
didn't even occur. So I find that so
you,
interesting. I love that.
well,
I love that,
it's
like that's what happens. I think people really stop themselves from going after the life that they want, the dreams that they want, the goals that they want, because they come up with unfortunately, they come up with these ideas.
and I think if so for me, I'll say for me, I remember judging myself and then looking for confirmation of that judgment.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? And so a lot of times folks will look for the reason why it's not supposed to happen, right?
Mhm.
And it's very easy to do that because societally, constantly somebody's telling you, no, no, you can't, you can't, you can't. And so it's really hard to get that programming out. It's almost automatic. Like even me, I've done a lot of work on it and I still went through that. I still went through that,
Mhm.
having to having to like reduce judgment on myself and still looking for reasons why like the stuff isn't working and whatnot. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah. Also,
It was the same thing.
it's easy to make that an excuse. It's easy to say, well, people don't
Absolutely.
believe that I could do it, so I probably can't do it. Instead,
Yeah. And
so I always come back to the same thing. Like I'm not looking for advice. I'm not talking to someone. I'm not taking someone's word who doesn't have or isn't doing the things that I want. I'm not talking to somebody who has $900 in the bank about becoming a millionaire. I'm going to talk to people who have actually accomplished being a millionaire about becoming a millionaire. I'm not talking to someone who doesn't have children about being a parent. I'm going to actually talk to a parent about being a parent. And so I think sometimes people talk themselves out of things instead of saying, hey, maybe instead of listening to the haters and the doubters and the naysayers, maybe I should kind of like look for the person who has what it is that I actually want. I think I was telling y'all one time I was going to rent a car, and me and my parents and I and Kennedy, we were going on a road trip. And so I was going to rent a car. And I remember talking to my mom and I was saying, okay, so I'm going to rent the car, then I'm going to come pick up you and dad. And then we're going to make a stop and then we're going to get on the road and, like kind of telling her the logistics just so that she could be ready. And she started telling me, she's like, oh, well, you better make sure that you go early to rent the car so that you can get the one that you want. And I was like, Mom, never in your whole existence did you ever rent a car. Why would you be telling me about renting a car? Never in your whole life has my mother ever rented. Look, my mother doesn't even drive at this point in her life.
Yeah.
I'm not taking advice from somebody who doesn't do the things that.
Listen, I mean, it's tricky. Look at what I mean. If I think about like marriage, I mean, we used to always have like single dudes trying to tell you, how you're supposed to treat your lady.
Right.
I had to bail on those cats.
Absolutely.
Like, because it wasn't helping me at all.
Like, what do you know about having a wife? What do you know about sustaining a long-term relationship? You know nothing. Why would I take your advice?
Yeah. But I think but to your point though, there was, at that point when I wanted to say that, this thing is rough. I was looking for those people who agreed that it was rough to validate my feelings around it.
Absolutely.
You follow what I'm saying? So it was just like, you going through that too? Yeah, this thing. Oh yeah, that's what makes this suck so much. It wasn't until after I was like, hold on, time out. Hanging out with these dudes all day is not that much fun.
Right.
I'd rather be hanging out with my lady.
It is not that much fun. Yeah.
And then, at our 20th, that's when we decide like every year we're going to do something on our anniversary. Because we like our first 20 years, we didn't do anything on our anniversary. Like we didn't even go away. And I think that was one of the stresses in our relationship because we was always working. We're working, we're making sure, we're providing for the household. Everything was around the household. We really wasn't taking care of each other. And we were starting to, kind of like, move apart and whatnot. It wasn't until like one day, Stella was like, we need to like, let's go somewhere. That's when we went to Atlantic City. We went to Atlantic City for like our 20th for like the first time in like 20 years.
Right.
We go away. It was a little tricky because I wasn't, we weren't used to going out and whatnot. We had a lot of fun. And then from then on out, we've been doing stuff, on our anniversary from then on out and whatnot. Just last week, we celebrated our 30th.
Congratulations.
Our 30th, we went to Atlantic City.
I see a theme. Every 10 years.
Yeah, it was like the 10 years.
Yeah. But I mean, we're joking, obviously, because we know that you've gone on anniversary trips to very beautiful and lavish places. I mean, I won't, I'm not going to tell your business, but so we know that you've celebrated in major ways. But I agree how important it is to do certain things like going away for your anniversary or doing something special to acknowledge your anniversary, because
just acknowledge it.
Of couples who do not make it to 30 years.
Yeah, just to acknowledge it. Absolutely. Yeah. And we shooting for 60.
Years. Yeah.
Yeah. We shooting for 60.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's super important. I know that you all also you also date, right? I love that you all go on some dates.
At least twice a month. At least twice a month. At least twice a month. We gotta hit the mall. We gotta go to lunch. I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
We find something. And those have been helping because there's a lot of times where we're out to lunch and we're able to like talk about stuff that's happened during the week that we can't at home because home is so crazy sometimes. Even though you're home, sometimes it's tough. We get out sometimes while we're having lunch. We're talking about the week and then we're talking about like how we're going to handle this stuff and whatnot. And then we come back refreshed and ready to rock and roll. Because, running a household is a lot of work. I got to tell you, that's why to me, I feel like that's why there's a lot of women who used to run households. They're great business people. And now I understand why. To run a household is like running a business. There's so much details that you got to worry about for everybody. It's wild.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that so many people and so many men don't get that. They don't understand like how critical and vital it is when your wife or spouse or partner is able to run a household. And so much of it gets taken for granted.
It gets that's the part. I think it gets taken for granted.
Yeah.
Sometimes you come home and it's like, you got to cook meal and it's just like it's supposed to be there. That's that person's job. No. I cook the meals every day. Yeah, it is part of my job as a house spouse. But it also helps us it helps me be in service to my wife. You follow what I'm saying? Because I love her. Why would I not be in service to my wife and serve her? You follow what I'm saying? But if it became one of those deals where she was coming home and she was just like, "Where's my dinner?" Best believe after a while she would be finding stuff. She'd be eating stuff that she just doesn't like on a regular basis, and I'd be like, "It's dinner. You ain't got to eat it. It's dinner." You know what I'm saying? I'm making sure you eat, and if
Right.
that's what if that's what
Right.
we gonna
Yeah.
do,
That's a huge part. I think, I think back to the days of Mad Men or Madison, the PR companies and the marketing firms on Madison Avenue, and how they understood, yeah, we're not selling to the husbands. We are selling to the housewives. We are selling to the wives who are at home. They are the ones who are actually making the decision about how it is spent. It might seem as if it's because the husband is out there earning the dollars, but it is actually the spouse who's at home who's making the major financial decisions. And I think
because we
it's something that's just challenging for people to understand.
it is, but it also I think that's like I was saying before. That I think that's why a lot of times, a lot of men don't understand how come women can come into a place and take command of a situation
Yeah.
in the way they do because of the way that they run the household, because they're used to having to figure out things on their feet. You out with your child and all of a sudden things are going awry. You got to come up with all kinds of different game plans when the kid's starting to throw a tantrum.
Right,
When
right,
you when you
right,
when they show up in the workplace, it's like I'm dealing with a bunch of adults. The tantrums don't bother y'all like,
right.
like the same and whatnot. Y'all looking around like, what is going on here?
Mhm, mhm.
Like women just, and that's why to me, like there's something innate about that has women show up as all these leaders as you see now. You follow what I'm saying? It's not. It's wild.
It is. It is. So if we're talking about business, let's talk a little bit about your newest business, your business of the actual company, the Happy House Spouse, not just you being a happy house spouse. Tell us a little bit about it.
Happy House Spouse, like I told you, Happy House Spouse is more of a that's more of a persona, but it was really designed to help folks who are transitioning from being in business to having to work from home understand that it's not an easy transition, but it's totally worth it. And to not minimize the importance of being a house spouse or your spouse who's working, who is the spouse at home, because the work is just as hard, is just not recognized with pay.
Mm, mm,
You follow what I'm saying?
yeah.
The work is just as hard, it's just not recognized with pay. Like it's not part of the GDP. Like I did a session around like how there's a lot of free labor going around that's not recorded in the GDP, right? Yeah, and that's how capitalism works. And so, that's why you have all this. Like, I do the laundry. I cook. This is stuff that I could do in a restaurant. I've worked in a restaurant. You follow what I'm saying? We was making money off that stuff. Right now, it's not like my family's getting it for free. However, it's not counted in the GDP, the meals that I'm making here. You follow what I'm saying? The laundry service that's being done, the cleaning and stuff like that. All of that stuff, we could have hired a cleaning company to come in. If we hired a cleaning company to come in, I'd have been paying those folks. You
That
see what I'm saying?
part. That part.
There's a dollar amount that would have been associated with that work that's not being calculated as it's being done. You follow what I'm saying?
So I've been a stay-at-home wife and a stay-at-home mom. And I think that a lot of people, a lot of men do not understand the difference. It's so funny. I see it a lot with older men. They'll have, it's this idea of this is their money and this is their house. And I'm like, okay, let's say that's true. Let's say that that's true. But now why don't you run me my money for being the chauffeur and the cook and the housekeeper and the accountant and the nurse, and add up all of those expenses, being the one to remember the birthdays and buy the gifts, and add up all of that invisible labor that occurs that no one wants to talk
No
about.
one wants to.
Yeah, add that all up and deduct that from whatever money or whatever house you got. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Listen, if you think about just childcare, if we just looked at childcare alone,
Mm-hmm.
right? When you want to work, you work, and then you put your kid in childcare. Childcare, and I might be lowballing it at this point, but childcare is probably like $500 a week.
Very low ball.
And I'm
You're
I'm being
very, very
conservative
low
here
ball.
on that, right?
Yeah.
That's almost $2,000 a month
Yeah.
on childcare, right? In most cases, if you're at home and you're taking care of the child, there's no one sitting there saying, "Here's your $500 a week for taking care of your kid."
Right.
You're not getting that, right? You're paying someone else $500 to take care of your kid. So somewhere in there there's a number that's not being calculated. You follow what I'm saying? Oh, when, to your point around like remembering birthdays and stuff like that, like who's doing that work?
Right.
When you're when at your job and you got to remember anniversaries, you got to take care of your employees and stuff like that. All those folks are getting paid for that stuff, right?
Yeah.
But when you're spousing and you got to take care of the household, and you ain't getting no
don't get
kudos for
paid.
that. You're not getting no money for that. You're getting praise.
Yeah.
Like Mom Dukes gets praised all the time about all the stuff that she's done.
Right.
But she used to work and do
all of
house
that.
stuff and whatnot. It was
Absolutely.
wild. I mean, she was running herself
And even if we
ragged on
like
that stuff.
look at it even closer, I remember my mom would buy the gifts from my dad for my sister and I from my dad, and we would get what we wanted. Even though we had told my dad, I know my mom was the one that bought it. There'd be times at Christmas I'm opening up the gifts. And I'm like, oh my God, look at this. And he's like, yeah, let me see. What is that? Because he hadn't seen it. He had no clue. He wasn't the one. He didn't buy it. He
Right,
didn't
right,
wrap it. He didn't put it in the
right,
tree. Mom did everything.
right.
But also when I think more closely about it and critically about it, just thinking about how it could have affected a child. Let's say had the child's birthday or holiday not been acknowledged, if mom wasn't the one to say, okay, I got to keep track of all these kids and all their birthdays and all their, how would a child feel if that wasn't acknowledged?
Yo, listen, I'll be honest with you. Like, I mean, I still lean on Chantel around that stuff
Mhm.
because I'm not that great at the gift giving, and I'm not great at like the like. I'm good at the prepping for the party. I'm not good at the like, hey, it's time to celebrate the party. You
Yeah,
follow what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
that part of it, like the actual like like acknowledging.
Mhm.
I'm learning it, but it's like one of those things where I gotta lean on my partner on that one. But yo, somebody's birthday comes, like, what are we doing
Yeah,
here?
what are we
She's like, you
doing? What
can't.
are we doing?
Yeah. She's like, you can't not show up without wine or something. I'm like, oh, okay, got it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Sometimes
I'm learning the gift
I
giving and
do
whatnot.
wonder what would
We
happen.
still have, hey, we still have I still have these shortcomings on a lot of stuff that I'm still working on and whatnot. And I feel like that shows up sometimes in even the workspaces. That's why I tell you right now, women leaders are off the charts. I have specifically, especially Black women, because Black women have to deal with so much microaggressions. It's almost ridiculous.
Mhm.
And it's very apparent, like, it's very apparent to y'all, but it's not apparent to the people who are doing the microaggressing. And so it's very hard for those folks who, especially when they're denying it all the time, like how we were talking about earlier on, about like sometimes you think you think I'm open to this stuff until you're not.
Yeah.
And then when someone tells you you're not, you don't want to believe them. And it's just like, at some point you got to learn to take the feedback on this stuff. You're not open on this stuff.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
That was one.
I've been in a space around this, and you and I have had a conversation have been talking about this for a while, that people often don't want others to have their experience. They want to tell them what their experience is. Like, no, that's not what you're saying. Well, before we get to the reframe, let's just be in, this is how I feel. This is what I'm experiencing right now. I don't need you to define it for me, because before you had an idea, I already knew what it was. And so, yeah, I think that speaks
Yeah.
a
And
lot to that.
remember, I'm still working on that, right? Like,
Yeah.
remember, we like, it's not like I'm perfect
Yeah,
at this stuff. Like, I
absolutely.
feel like I'm pretty good. But then you were like,
Absolutely.
no, I gotta remind you, bro.
Yeah. And not just you. I mean,
What's happening?
yeah, no, and not just you. other people too. Like that's the whole
Yeah.
yeah, that's a big part of what you're saying, like that's a thing. That's a whole thing.
Yeah.
I have people do it to me all the time. I'm like, "No, wait, stop. Hang on." So tell me if we're talking about women leaders, and I know you are the leader of a family where there are some wonderful and strong, powerful, beautiful leaders and women, where do you see yourself and your family in the next few years?
Next few years, we're still one of the things Chantel and I was talking about while we were away on our 30th was learning how to live in the happily ever after. Like, defining what the happily ever after and then actually like being okay with living in it. Like staying in there and holding on to the joy. So, us having a fun time, in our marriage and continue to keep growing our marriage is where I see us going. I see us getting old together and just still doing a whole bunch of fun stuff. Eventually, Chantel is retiring so that she could do her own, she could do whatever she wants to do. Some of it is she wants to be a sommelier. Some of it she wants to be like a crochet expert. She hasn't made up her mind yet. She knows that she don't want to work where she's at, and that's okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's
She could
totally
do
okay.
all of it. She could do all of it. Yeah.
Whatever,
I
you
mean,
know?
I really like the sommelier thing only because, that's I benefit personally from that.
I gotta, I'm working on my mindset coaching business, Time to Thrive. That's my next endeavor, along with a bunch of things. So I see myself in some sort of council seat in the next 10 years. We'll be doing, we'll be doing some things in the community. Chantel and I will be having fun.
I love that. So love that. So tell us, where can listeners connect with you? Where can they follow your
Well, you
journey?
could
Where they
you
can
could always see me at, the Happy House Spouse on Instagram, where I'm taking people through my journey of house spousing. Whenever I learn some things, I share those things with folks. Whoever's out there and decide they want to be a full-time house spouse, I'm here for it as a support, or just to kind of give you some feedback on the stuff that I've been going through on it. You can also see me on in Facebook. I have my Time to Thrive community. That one is around, mindset coaching. So I coach people around mindset to get their mindset in the endeavor that they're going through. So, and for me, that was like I was passionate about time. Time is really my thing. Like, I feel like everything happens in time,
yeah,
and
time
having
is
a
your jam.
relationship with
Yeah.
time, yeah,
Yeah.
is the key. But I've been learning that really the thing around time is having the mindset. So wherever your mind is set on is what I like to coach people around and whatnot. So, if your mind set on being an entrepreneur, then we're going to work on your entrepreneurial mindset, right? If your mindset is to be a better husband, then we're going to work on your mindset, right? Coaching around how to be a better husband. And if your mindset is around just wanting to learn how to have fun, we'll work on your fun mindset.
Absolutely.
So I've embraced being a mindset coach.
I love that. I love that. I love that for you. I am so glad that we were able to have this talk, that we were able to record this podcast. It's not like we don't talk every day because we basically do. But I'm really glad that we were able to sit down and have this talk. And I know that people are going to listen to this podcast and learn something and gain some new information. So I just want to say thank you so much, Jude.
Thank you for having me. This was really, really great, sharing some of these things with you. You've played a very big role in a lot of my transitions. So it's key. It's dope that you're a life strategist.
Absolutely.
I feel
Absolutely.
like I got the inside track with you being on the mastermind and being able to kind of like go through all of these different life strategies in the way that we have. And I feel real lucky, and I'm really grateful for our relationship.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad to hear you say that. Well, everybody, this has been Talks with Tiffany, the podcast. Thank you for joining us. Be sure to like and comment and subscribe. Tell someone about the podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts. We are on Spotify, on Amazon Music, and also on YouTube. Thank you so much. I look forward to speaking to you all soon. Have a good one.